Chapter 35. 2 greater than 1. Lemmy looked into the screen. King was now on the Jeep with him. "Okay, in position." Tony looked into the other stacker at the Gamer Chimp and said, "Do it." The Gamer Chimp ran over to another stacker and fiddled with it. From Tony's view, he could see the drones flying into formation, one at a time as the Gamer Chimp touched each of them to his stacker. The Gamer Chimp was concentrating and yelled over his shoulder after he touched the last one, "Okay, get ready." Tony crept the war store he was piloting up to the side of the hill, just close enough so they could see over the top and watch the other war store. From the opposite side of the valley, the Gamer Chimp's drone wall flew over the hill and into the view of the enemy war store. In front of the tribe's war store, Lemmy's Jeep sped over the top of the hill. Lemmy's Jeep crested the hill, filled with armor-clad chimps and gorillas. He swerved from tree cover to tree cover as he approached the enemy war store. "Don't get seen before the drone wall," Tony yelled to Lemmy through the stacker. Lemmy's Jeep adjusted its path, staying in the trees a bit longer. The Gamer Chimp's drone wall now was in plain view of the other war store, but Tony wondered why it wasn't reacting to it. He wanted it to turn and attack the war store so they can attack it from the back side, but it just kept driving straight. Maybe this plan is going to work, but how could they ignore a bunch of drones? Tony thought, and started thinking about plan B. If that thing starts targeting Lemmy, we have to save them. Okay, get ready to nuke that fucking thing, Bob. Oh yeah, man, ready. For a second, the war store looked like it was turning left towards Lemmy, but then it made a hard right and began facing the drone wall. "Now, Lemmy, go, go!" Tony yelled into the stacker. Lemmy's Jeep peeled out from behind the trees and made a straight line for the enemy war store, speeding out into the field in front of it. The Jeep was out in open view now, although the war store was turning to face the other way. The war store shot its machine guns at the drone wall, taking out a bunch of them. Then it released a drone wall of its own. All of a sudden, Tony heard music blaring from the stackers. It was from Lemmy's. Tony could see Lemmy pulling out a ghetto blaster and placing it on the hood. "Know Your Enemy" by Rage turned on. The Jeep's occupants went crazy and started jumping all around the Jeep. "Ho, ho, ho! Ah, 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 ah!" Some started hanging off the side of the Jeep. One of them flashed devil horns into the stacker's view. Tony looked out the main window of the war store at the Jeep, hauling ass and bouncing with monkeys and apes. "What the fuck are they?" Tony said. Bob interrupted. "Rockin', man! They be war rockin', man!" Perry laughed and sat up to get a better view. "Yeah! War rockin'? Oh, go you fucking crazy monkeys!" Lemmy's Jeep blasted Know Your Enemy as loud as it possibly could, with a little mosh pit in the back seat of the Jeep, as they closed in on the rear of the war store. The war store was unleashing its arsenal at the toy drone wall, annihilating them all and obliterating the entire hillside below them. Tony looked to the Gamer Chimp stacker. It was black. He grimaced, then focused on Lemmy's Jeep as it reached the war store, rocking out to Know Your Enemy. Lemmy did one of his famous drifting turns, a rooster tail of dirt spraying out behind him. The tribe on the back of the Jeep leaned so it didn't flip. He did like he always did, and he nailed the turn perfectly, sliding right up next to the giant tank treads of the war store. Without any hesitation, the entire clown car of the Jeep exited in one jump, jumping onto the moving gears of the giant tank treads. Within seconds, they were halfway up the war store. Know Your Enemy was only halfway through. Lemmy looked into the stacker. "Payload delivered. We go, man?" Bob asked. No, not yet. We don't want to damage that war store if we don't have to," Tony replied. Inside the enemy war store, the captain was yelling at his supervisor. "What do you mean it was a fake drone wall?" He pointed to his guards. They rushed across the cockpit and carried the supervisor away, kicking and screaming. The supervisor pleaded, "No, wait! It was real stuff!" Ah! The captain let out an exhausted-sounding sigh. "Ah, I'm surrounded by fucking idiots." He popped a cube into his mouth and began sucking on it. Then he stood up and began walking away, clicking on the war store floor. Captain?" the new top supervisor said. The clicking stopped. The captain slowly turned around. He looked up, his face saying, "This better be good." The new supervisor didn't say a word. He just put his screen up on the main screen. It was a live feed from a camera on top of the war store. It looked down at dozens of different-sized apes and monkeys climbing up the war store towards the camera. They were wearing medieval helmets, carrying swords and other various medieval weapons. "What the?" the captain questioned out loud. Two spider monkeys zipped by the doorway behind them. He spun around. Light filled the hallway from outside the cockpit. Then a shadow entered and became dark again. The captain's guards ran towards the doorway and opened fire down the hallway. "Ah, I'll kill you!" There was the rapid-fire cracking of their semi-automatic rifles. Clinging and clanging bullets hitting metal, ricocheting around in the hallway. Then a crowd of the tribe stumbled onto the guards and began hacking them to pieces. King stepped over them and entered the cockpit. He was all business, but he had to do a double take when he saw the captain. "I kill you already," he said, and swung a Morning Star. He choked up his grip halfway up the chain, so it was a quick and short overhead arc swing. It smashed the front of the captain's head, the metal Morning Star crushing into the skull's meaty center like a Tootsie Pop. He said nothing and flopped to the floor. The Morning Star fell with him, embedded into his skull. The rest of the crew was scrambling for the exits. The armor-clad tribe stood in the doorway. A phalanx of swords, spears, axes poked at anyone trying to leave. They awaited King's decision. "Let go," King said. King looked at the trembling war store employees. They looked like a bunch of shitty Walmart employees. "Let go," King said. The tribe members slowly moved out of the way, and the war store crew scooted through as soon as they could fit. A few of them apologized as they left. "Oh, sorry. King went up to a specific station, the one Tony taught him to. He fiddled with the screen, and in the original war store, King's face flashed on the main screen. They now had two motherfucking war stores. Everyone was happy to see King's face. He stood there smiling, looked up at Bob and yelled, "Yeah!" Tony stood up smiling, looked over at Bob and yelled. Then he did a little raise the roof type of dance. "Yeah, yeah." Elle and Janice came in from the office. Perry asked Tony, "You planned that shit?" Tony replied, "I planned that shit." Elle asked, "The plan worked? They took that war store?" "Yep," Tony said, still doing the raise the roof dance. "The art of war, man." Bob slid his head back and forth, rubbing his necklace. Tony said, "Yep, Bob, we were like water, adapted to the situation. We knew our enemy, used our strengths." He explained their thinking. "These fucking war stores are so specialized, they're basically built to take out the military. We saw it destroy the U.S. military twice with no losses. They never planned on fighting a bunch of fucking gorillas and monkeys. Also, in this one, well, just like the art of war, we won a battle without even fighting." "That Waldo, man," Bob added. "Yeah," Tony replied. That fake drone wall was amazing. Because these war stores aren't vulnerable to infantry. They have like 6 anti-personnel machine guns. But that distraction countered that perfectly. But you know what? That was actually Elle's idea. He nodded towards her and he smiled. That gamer chimp probably gave his life, though. It was all the distraction Lemmy and King needed, Tony continued. Then he paused. All right, Bob. So you have your own war store now. Bob smiled and Tony set course for the new war store. 2 chimps were killed by the guards shooting down the hallway. Those were the only losses. Bob got situated into his new pilot seat. They divided the crew into both war stores. It was the humans, Janice, Moon, and a few other chimps on the old war store. Bob, King, Slash, and the majority of the tribe jumped onto the new war store. Lemmy kept a few on his scout jeep. And the 2 war stores rode off into the sunset.